Stop your bow, Mr. Fiddler. Oh, ha, hi. This country so colorful and truly diverse. We doing our best to put TNT first. Youth success through advancement, we encourage. We proudly supporting the rich cultural heritage, promoting development in the sporting arena, and empowering women for equality of gender. We sustaining the environment and strengthening the society. First citizens helping paint a brighter TNT. Drag your bow, Mr. Fiddler.
This is the heart of First Citizens.
From different places we came, but to only one we lay claim. Our hopes, our dreams, our reality, striving to meet our destiny. We're moving forward, building our future, making it better. Partners in success, First Citizens.
Professionals with the drive to succeed. We're moving on, we're growing strong.
Together we'll take the whole world on. We're moving forward, with strength and with honor, loyal to know, partners in success, First Citizens.
In customer service,
We are the leaders.
perfection is our practice.
We are the leaders.
In technology, yeah, working with pride and dignity.
We're moving forward, building our
Future
making it
better.
partners in
Success.
First Citizens. With strength and with
Honor.
loyal to know, partners in
Success.
First Citizens.
Going the distance, making a difference. Be your best friend. Give a helping hand. Be true to yourself and your neighbor. That's the real strength of a partner. Be all you can be, all you can be. Let your spirit soar free.
To all those who believed in us, thank you.
First Citizens.
First Citizens, celebrating the first 25.
Stop your bow, Mr. Fiddler. Oh, ha, hi. This country so colorful and truly diverse. We doing our best to put TNT first. Youth success through advancement, we encourage. We proudly supporting the rich cultural heritage, promoting development in the sporting arena, and empowering women for equality of gender. We sustaining the environment and strengthening the society. First citizens helping paint a brighter TNT. Drag your bow, Mr. Fiddler.
This is the heart of First Citizens.
From different places we came, but to only one we lay claim. Our hopes, our dreams, our reality, striving to meet our destiny. We're moving forward, building our
Future
making it
better.
partners in
Success.
First Citizens.
Honest in word and deed. Professionals with the drive to succeed. We're moving on, we're growing strong.
Together we'll take the whole world on. We're moving
Forward,
with strength and with
honor,
loyal to know, partners in
success.
First
We are the
Citizens.
leaders.
In customer service,
We are the leaders.
perfection is our practice.
We are the leaders.
In technology, yeah, working with pride and dignity.
We're moving forward, building our
Future
making it
better.
partners in
Success.
First Citizens. With strength and with
Honor.
loyal to know, partners in
Success.
First Citizens.
Going the distance, making a difference. Be your best friend.
Right, so we're on 101.
Be true to yourself and your neighbor. That's the real strength of a partner. Be all you can be, all you can be. Let your spirit soar free.
To all those who believed in us, thank you.
First Citizens.
First Citizens, celebrating the first 25. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We will begin this afternoon's program shortly. A number of our guests are logging in even as we speak, so we're just giving them a couple more minutes to come in before we begin. Thanks for your patience.
Stop your bow, Mr. Fiddler. Oh, ha, hi. This country so colorful and truly diverse. We're doing our best to put TNT first. Youth success through advancement, we encourage. We proudly supporting the rich cultural heritage, promoting development in the sporting arena, and empowering women for equality of gender. We sustaining the environment and strengthening the society. First citizens helping paint a brighter TNT. Drag your bow, Mr. Fiddler.
This is the heart of First Citizens.
From different places we came, but to only one we lay claim. Our hopes, our dreams, our reality, striving to meet our destiny. We're moving forward, building our future, making it better, partners in success, First Citizens.
Honest in word and deed, professionals with the drive to succeed. We're moving on, we're growing strong.
Together we'll take the whole world on. We're moving forward, with strength and with
Honor,
loyal to know, partners in
success.
First
We are
Citizens.
the leaders,
In customer service,
we are the leaders,
perfection is our practice.
we are the leaders.
In technology, yeah, working with pride and dignity.
We're moving forward, building our
Future,
making it
better,
partners in
success.
First Citizens. With strength and with
Honor,
loyal to know, partners in
success.
First Citizens.
Going the distance, making a difference. Be your best friend, give a helping hand. Be true to yourself and your neighbor. That's the real strength of a partner. Be all you can be, all you can be. Let your spirit soar free.
To all those who believed in us, thank you.
First Citizens.
First Citizens, celebrating the first 25.
Stop your bow, Mr. Fiddler. Oh, ha, hi. This country so colorful and truly diverse. We're doing our best to put TNT first. Youth success through advancement, we encourage. We proudly supporting the rich cultural heritage, promoting development in the sporting arena, and empowering women for equality of gender. We sustaining the environment and strengthening the society. First citizens helping paint a brighter TNT. Drag your bow, Mr. Fiddler.
This is the heart of First Citizens.
From different places we came, but to only one we lay claim. Our hopes, our dreams, our reality, striving to meet our destiny. We're moving
Forward,
building our
future,
making it
better,
partners in
success.
First Citizens.
Honest in word and deed, professionals with the drive to succeed. We're moving on, we're growing strong.
Together we'll take the whole world on. We're moving
Forward,
with strength and with
honor,
loyal to know, partners in
success.
First
We are
Citizens.
the leaders,
In customer service,
we are the leaders,
perfection is our practice.
we are the leaders.
In technology, yeah, working with pride and dignity.
We're moving
Forward,
building our
future,
making it
better,
partners in
success.
First Citizens. With strength and with
Honor,
loyal to know, partners in
success.
First Citizens.
Going the distance.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for your patience. We're now about to begin this afternoon's proceedings. My name is Larry Olton. I'm the head of brand and marketing at First Citizens. And before we begin, I'd like to take this opportunity to give you a few housekeeping rules as we start. We know that by now, many of you are familiar with the Zoom platform, but we beg your indulgence as we go over just a few housekeeping items in our session today. Today's event takes the form of a Zoom webinar. Of course, this means that while we encourage your active participation, your mics and cameras are disabled. To engage with us, please feel free to post in the chat any relevant comments that you may have, but questions that you may have, you will post in the Q&A segment. There will also be an opportunity for you to pose those, and when the main speaker speaks, you would post those in the Q&A facility. For the best experience, we encourage you to set your view to speaker view as opposed to gallery view. At the end of today's session, an event feedback survey will be shared with you. This survey will be shared as a link in the chat area, and at the end of the seminar, you will see a Zoom, when your Zoom window is closed, you'll have the opportunity to complete the survey. Those of you who do will have a chance to win a random prize at the end, and we look forward to your participation and feedback. Our host will repeat some of these guidelines later on as we go, so have no fear if I've gone through it a bit quickly. I invite you now to take a moment to check and optimize your Zoom settings. Our webinar will begin right away. Ladies and gentlemen, our presentation of the First Citizens Women First, Why Gender Equality is a Good Investment begins now with a look back at our event over the past 2 years. Please enjoy.
We're moving forward, building our future, making it better, partners in success, First Citizens.
Honest in word and deed, professionals with the drive to succeed. We're moving on, we're growing strong.
I'm really so very, very happy to welcome you here today to our 6th annual Women's Conference, aptly called Women Changing the Narrative.
Intimate partner and domestic violence is an issue that continues to plague many in our society.
But for the first time, in 2018, we have what's called prevalence data, which is we know what the numbers are in relation to women's actual realities.
This is a great honor for me, believe me. It's a great honor to be here, both as a man, but also in this great conference.
The reality is, within recent times, sexual harassment in the workplace has become a serious problem.
A very serious problem.
Yeah.
Very, very serious problem.
Yes.
Today we're going to talk about what's work got to do with it. And we're looking at the myth of work-life balance.
Because if you think of a balance, you're always thinking of like what we see on the screen, you know, like a scale.
From different places we came, but to only one we lay claim. Our hopes, our dreams, our reality, striving to meet our destiny. We're moving forward, building our future, making it better, partners in success, First Citizens.
I have my pride and I have my ambition. I'm going to hold my head high as a woman. Tell them again, keep their money. Keep my money and die with my dignity. Have a nice evening, ladies and gentlemen.
Honest in word and deed, professionals with the drive to succeed.
We're moving on, we're growing strong. Together we'll take the whole world on. We're moving forward with strength and with honor.
Ladies and gentlemen, and fundamentally, my conversation partner today, Mrs. Fayan Lyons Alvarez. It is a pleasure and honor to be here to carry a conversation that hopefully will bring us to a greater level of awareness about our culture about the stories we tell ourselves and the gender narratives in music.
To what extent should the artist take some responsibility for the messages being put out there? Because we know music is like art, it's subject to interpretation.
Yes. You have the choice to not support that artist, not listen to their music, not watch them perform. You do have that choice. So we can't ask people to be creative, but then say, you know what, I don't like the level of creativity you're bringing forward.
We need to keep it moving. We need to be positive, but we can't just be individual. We have to worry about our sisters too. Thank you.
Stepmother, all the other mamas-in-law, everybody, yes. Always elevated as the highest representation of female identity, because that is the nurturer and the giver of life.
We are here to make memories. We are here to make new memories.
In technology, yeah, working with pride and dignity.
The card is now purple.
Making it partners in success for citizens. With strength and with honor, loyal to know. Partners in success for citizens.
Going the distance, making a difference. Be your best friend, give a helping hand. Be true to yourself and your neighbor. That's the real strength of a partner. Be all you can be, all you can be. Let your spirit soar free.
Partners in success.
Indian Bazan, they jam in the soca, jam in the soca. Oh yes. Ulman di sasa, take off in capra.
We're moving on, we're growing strong. Together we'll take the whole world on. We're moving forward.
Engaging and enjoyable conferences over the last 2 years in particular. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome your host for this evening's proceedings, Dr. Sue-Ann Barrett.
Good afternoon. My name is Sue-Ann Barrett, and it is indeed my esteemed pleasure to host First Citizens Women First 2020. I hope you enjoyed the videos that look back at the Women First conferences for 2018 and 2019. Really good memories of a time not so long ago and conversations that remain very relevant today. This year, our conference takes the form of this webinar. As we are all aware, we feel acutely the challenges that prevent us from communing face-to-face in the way we are used to for this event. But we remain grateful to still have an opportunity to meet and share with each other in this unique 2020. This year, we discuss the question, why gender equality is good investment. And our guest speaker has reshaped this topic with a particular focus on rebuilding the economy, growth with a gender perspective. Therefore, we deal with multiple factors that affect and impinge and mediate equality, a fitting and timely theme given the trials of life and livelihood we now face and the ongoing challenges to figure out a way ahead that all of our societies and economies continue to experience in a most pressing way. As we begin our session this afternoon, please join me in welcoming First Citizens Group Chief Executive Officer, Ms. Karen Darbesi, who will fully contextualize the significance of this topic in today's climate and the motivation behind hosting this event annually.
Good afternoon and a warm welcome to our session today. Our Women's Conference is now in its 8th year, and it is one of those corporate events and engagements that I look forward to every year. I do so for its singular focus and refreshing content, and of course, to meet and interact with you, many of whom have been attending our conferences year after year, and those increasing numbers of first-timers I'm sure will find real value in the conference. Of course, as with many corporate, sporting, religious, social, and other activities this year, our Women's Conference has had to be adjusted to suit the constraints wrought by the pandemic virus. And so here we are participating virtually. I have to say that I personally much prefer to see and speak to you in person, and I look forward to resuming our preferred format in the not too distant future. As we move towards the close of 2020, many of us will reflect on the unique perspectives that this year has brought and project for the new year ahead with a fresh sense of optimism. Yes, the COVID-19 pandemic tested us in new ways, but it also stimulated our capacity to respond with intelligence, compassion, frugality, and fortitude. Globally, we saw the added value that women, as leaders of nations, brought to the table. Women like Prime Ministers Jacinda Ardern of New Zealand, Chancellor Angela Merkel of Germany, and closer to home, Mia Mottley of Barbados, who continue to take their societies successfully through testing times. We also saw everyday women like ourselves all across the Caribbean rise to the occasion by providing critical caregiving services to children, the ill, and the elderly in our homes and institutions. And of course, the many women who carry the dual responsibility of a professional job while simultaneously shouldering the additional cares of the household, both made more arduous in these times. Nevertheless, the year is now almost behind us, and personally and collectively, we seem poised for continued creativity, innovation, and shifts. We too have had to adapt, meeting with you virtually for the first time after 7 years of seeing each other face to face and engaging each other as sisters in a full day of discussions and activities. Our goal has been to provide a forum to equip women to navigate difficult conditions with the aim of achieving economic and social advancement in their personal and professional lives. The review video you have just seen of the last 2 years of our conference gives only a glimpse into this rewarding endeavor, which we hope to resume when it is possible again to meet and greet each other physically. In the meantime, it's our pleasure to offer this platform through which we can explore why an investment in gender equality is critical, not just for the state or key stakeholders, but for how it hits home to each one of us. As a female in banking for over 2 decades, as leader and exemplar for a predominantly female workforce, and as a mother with a young adult daughter, I understand at several levels the issue of inequality. Thankfully, I've been fortunate to see our nation make formidable strides over the years, having proudly signed on to the United Nations Beijing Declaration, which seeks to advance the goals of equality for all women. Trinidad and Tobago continues to do its part by staying open to creating and amending policies that would safeguard our women, and most importantly, bringing the education and awareness on this issue that remains critical to effecting greater change. However, while much is being done, even greater accomplishments can be attained. If we all commit to making matters like laws and policies that will advance female interests, respect females in leadership, business, and politics, and provide more opportunities for women and girls, matters that are all personal and important to us, I believe we can make an even greater impact. This is precisely why I personally embrace so many of the excellent initiatives undertaken by our group, which make a real difference in the lives of women. With financial support from the First Citizens Group and proceeds from Purple Card holders, our Advancement of Women Committee was hard at work this year, as you will see shortly in their feature video. New circumstances or not, they have continued to assist projects and coordinate activities related to improving women's lives and mitigating the effects of gender-based violence on women and children. Additionally, ventures like our recently held Girls First Festival, which promotes resilience, entrepreneurship, and empowerment amongst adolescent girls, continue to demonstrate our commitment to women and girls. As we set about this afternoon's conversation, let's keep in mind that as women, we have a major role to play in the future of our nations. So, at this critical juncture, where we recalibrate individually and collectively, let's capitalize on this chance to seriously consider how progressive thinking and programs can continue to help us to advance economic growth and financial and social stability. Together, we can seize a moment in history where we can draw on the experience of those who are best placed to guide us on how we might truly rebuild a stronger economy and society, if there's a commitment to invest in gender equality. It is my pleasure to host today's keynote speaker, Mrs. Rocio Medina Bolivar, the Inter-American Development Bank country representative to Trinidad and Tobago, who has dedicated herself to advancing the lives of women in her own sphere. Thank you, Rocio, for agreeing to share with us on the important theme of economic progress with a gender lens. We all look forward to hearing about your own triumphs, ideas, and suggestions on how we can all ready ourselves for a new chapter of opportunities. As I close, I encourage you to do more than simply view. Lend your voice to the conversation through your comments and questions. And if you wish to join us by making a tangible contribution toward advancing the lives of women and girls, you are welcome to invest in our Advancement of Women Fund. Thank you once more for taking the time to chat with us and joining the global cause for a future marked by greater equality for women and girls. I wish you a productive and enjoyable afternoon. Thank you.
First Citizens Group CEO, Ms. Karen Darbesi. We thank her for reminding us to contemplate our tests, to reflect on our opportunities, to be optimistic, to consider progressive thought and progressive action that's collaborative and collective, all in an effort to gender equality. Over the years, First Citizens Women First has been proud to offer women of all walks of life a forum through which the issues at the fore of our collective experience could be explored and even challenged. In the hosting of this event, we are able to do much more than just talk about impacting the lives of women. We are also aiming to raise funds for the First Citizens Advancement of Women Committee. This committee was introduced by Ms. Darbesi and is charged with providing financial support to NGOs dedicated to improving the lives of women and their children. Here's a look at some of the good we have been able to do in Trinidad and Tobago with the funds you have helped us raise in the past.
In 2020, the world was thrust into the scourge of the COVID-19 pandemic in unimaginable ways. Nevertheless, the Advancement of Women Committee came together to ensure that we were able to make an even greater impact as the pandemic had shone a glaring light on the spikes in the level of domestic violence. In addition to helping several shelters who found themselves closed off from funding during the lockdown, we forged new relationships with institutions such as the Gender-Based Violence Unit of the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, and rekindled old connections with organizations such as Families in Action and the Halfway House.
Since 2011, the First Citizens Fund for the Advancement of Women has been making a difference in the lives of women and children who have suffered from the effects of domestic abuse. The fund partners and collaborates with organizations such as the Coalition Against Domestic Violence and the Rape Crisis Center on projects with common goals. Your contributions fund programs for women and children such as psychological counseling individually and in groups, financial literacy, activities to improve the confidence and well-being of victims, community awareness initiatives for the signs and dangers of persistent domestic disputes, and the actions to take under those circumstances to alert the relevant authorities.
One of our biggest accomplishments during the lockdown was to partner with Douglas & Associates for a 5-month program to directly assist women who found themselves victims of intimate partner abuse.
In certain instances, the fund provides much-needed physical assets for the operation of the homes and shelters.
As part of our remit, we continue to lend our support to organizations such as Bridge of Hope, Myrtle Place, Selville's Home in Love in Tobago, Coover Children's Home, Women of Substance in Tobago, and Rainbow Rescue, to name a few.
We are thankful for your continued support to do the critical work to improve and save lives, which, together with the generous annual financial assistance and administrative support of First Citizens Bank, enable victims to have hopeful and productive lives.
We hope to continue making a dent in providing solutions to end gender-based violence.
Ever wish you could do something to help the victims of domestic violence? The First Citizens Purple Card makes it easy for you to contribute monthly from as little as $25. For more information, send a secure message via First Citizens online banking. Visit firstcitizenstt.com or call 62FIRST today.
Ladies and gentlemen, we would like to assure you that your generous donations and largesse are put to good use in the assistance and rescue of women and children in vulnerable circumstances. For this, we thank you.
And the work continues through diverse partnerships and direct intervention and assistance. We are indeed hopeful that we can continue to do this valuable work led by the First Citizens Advancement of Women Committee. Of course, the devastating impact of gender-based violence pre and during this pandemic is pressing on our hearts and minds. So we must continue to work together to effect change and to rescue our own security and stability in this climate. Just a few housekeeping notes before we continue with this evening's program. And for those of you who joined us recently or have been joining us since we started, please know that we move into our main item shortly on what is a brief agenda, a brief though valuable agenda. I'd like to remind you that during the question and answer segment, following our keynote speaker, please type your questions into the Zoom Q&A area. If you're unfamiliar, it's at the bottom of your screen in the middle. You would see Q&A and two call outs next to each other. So do use that function. For general comments and chat and engagement with each other, you can use the chat function. We will be fielding these to read these questions to our speaker after her delivery. Additionally, we will post a link to an event feedback survey in the chat. Remember, you have a chance to win a prize if you participate. The survey will also open automatically when you leave this webinar. So take a minute to let us know how you felt about the webinar today. And we really, truly value your feedback. As a final word, please do keep in mind that we are recording this session as we do for all of these conferences, but we inform you so that you are aware that your participation is on record. Again, thank you for joining. At this point, it is my pleasure to introduce Professor Patricia Mohammed. Professor Mohammed will moderate our session with our keynote speaker. She, of course, is such a distinguished person, a distinguished scholar, and a distinguished member of the team of this yearly conference. Professor Mohammed is Emerita Professor of Gender and Cultural Studies and retired as Director, School of Graduate Studies and Research at the University of the West Indies St. Augustine campus in July 2019. She is a pioneer in the development of feminist activism in the Caribbean and in the advancement of gender studies at the tertiary level in the Anglophone Caribbean. She was the first head of the Institute for Gender and Development Studies at the UWI Mona campus, Jamaica in 1994, and has also served in this capacity variously at the St. Augustine, Trinidad campus. She has published extensively in the fields of gender and cultural studies, in text and film, and is the architect of 5 national gender policies for various states in the Caribbean. With that said, please join me in welcoming Professor Patricia Mohammed.
Thank you, Dr. Barrett. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It is my honor to introduce our keynote speaker today, Ms. Rocio Medina Bolivar. Ms. Medina Bolivar was born in Peru and has studied and worked previously in Peru, Venezuela, and the United States. We are very pleased to have her currently living and working in Trinidad and Tobago as the country representative of the Inter-American Development Bank, or the IDB as we call it. Before this, she was located in Washington, DC, as the IDB's senior advisor for the promotion and development of the private sector in the Andean countries. There, she had oversight of strategies, programming, and financing of infrastructure projects in Bolivia, Colombia, Ecuador, Peru, and Venezuela. In this country, Trinidad and Tobago, she has a responsible task of managing the IDB's non-sovereign portfolio and supporting its technical assistance initiatives. She holds a law degree from the Pontificia Universidad Católica del Peru and a Master of Laws from Harvard Law School. Before joining the IDB, she worked as an associate attorney for one of the leading law firms in Peru, advising various financial institutions and companies on corporate and project finance issues and on capital market transactions. In a 20-year career at the IDB, she has had extensive experience in both public and private sector financing. She was Senior Energy Specialist of the Energy Division of the IDB from 2008 to 2009. And from 2011 to 2014, she served as the IDB country representative in Venezuela. During this time, she monitored a portfolio focused mainly on energy projects in Washington. While in Washington, she led the structuring of various non-sovereign guarantee financings and public-private partnerships at IDB, of which 2 were awarded Deal of the Year by the Project Finance magazine for the innovative financial terms. Joining the Trinidad and Tobago office, Ms. Medina Bolivar became fully involved in the economic and social well-being of this region. In June 2018, she reported in the Trinidad Express newspapers that, quote, the living and housing conditions of over 7,000 low-income families in communities across Trinidad and Tobago had been improved as a result of a neighborhood upgrading program funded by the IDB to the tune of US $47 million. In the same year, 2018, she was invited by the Trinidad Chamber of Commerce to address a large gathering on boosting the private sector engine. She underscored the need for a metamorphosis of the public sector in a rapidly changing world, as the IDB supported Trinidad and Tobago President's Award for Service Excellence and Innovation in the Public Sector, an event hosted in 2019 and recently reprised in 2020. Gender issues represent another aspect of IDB's cooperation with the government of Trinidad and Tobago, as it partnered in rolling out the first National Women's Health Survey. Authors Medina Bolivar and Dana King published some results of the survey in an article, "Is There an Effective Way to End Family Violence?" From her impressive experience, Ms. Medina Bolivar fully appreciates that promoting gender equality improves the development effectiveness of public investments and allows myriad opportunities for women's empowerment at both the public and personal levels. We are very pleased that she readily accepted the invitation by our Women First planning team to address us on rebuilding the economy growth with a gender perspective, and we look forward to her delivery. She will speak for around 40 minutes and is looking forward to responding to your questions. And again, to remind you, as our host has done, to ensure that we get the full benefit of your participation other than in the chat. As an audience, please remember to write your questions on the Q&A feature. Ladies and gentlemen, I invite Ms. Medina Bolivar to take us through this topic. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Mohammed, and good afternoon to all our viewers that are joining this afternoon from Trinidad and Tobago and the Caribbean region, and maybe elsewhere, considering that now we are in the virtual world, and that gives an advantage to reach to a greater audience to talk about such important topic as gender equality. As it was mentioned, I will talk about rebuilding the economy and with a gender perspective, and I hope after my presentation, I will convince you or do a compelling case of why gender equality is a good investment. So with that, let me just start sharing my presentation so you can start also seeing it. Please let me know if you're seeing it. It's okay? I'm assuming it's yes.
Yes, you're fine. You're fine.
Great. So I organized the presentation in 5 big topics, just to give the context of the private sector gender gap first and with some data and key factors, to move to talk about why equality is a win-win scenario. Also, I will talk about the new trends and products that are very used right now in the financial sectors, to zoom to a specific case and area that is very important even now during COVID times with the use of more of digital and technology, which is women and fintech. And at the end, I will provide a couple of tools that I hope are very, the audience find it useful. So let's start. The private sector gender gap in Latin America and the Caribbean is really hard. Women are prevented to develop their full economic potential due to financial and non-financial gaps. And actually, we can spend a whole full webinar just talking about these key factors, but I will just do a general overview so you can identify these topics. And I will start talking about sexism. Sexism is the social conventions, the biases, the prejudices that we have, and actually the structural and institutional so-called machismo that exists in our society, particularly in our region. Also, a key factor, and I think that's very important even for the move of women in the private sector and businesses, is the capital social networking. Women normally, I mean, this does not spend or has less access to business networking. And actually, the business networking in Latin America and the Caribbean are planned and designed more exclusively under a male logic. And actually, women rely more on family ties or informal relationships. But this is a key factor that maybe we can explore much more during the Q&A, but this is a key factor that helps the more participation of women in the private sector. Then another area that also is a barrier that prevents development of women is the human capital and training. Women historically specialize less on careers related to businesses and management compared to men. If we talk about the STEM careers, actually women represent only 35% of the students enrolled on the STEM careers. And even if we dip even further, there's also gender disparities on the STEM careers. Like there's a low level of enrollment, like careers related to ICT, to engineering, construction, mathematics, science, and statistics. So this to work on these specific areas is critical to actually as well move the agenda of women in the private and entrepreneurship. Another key factor that I want to highlight is the unpaid work. And I mean, and this is very related to the gender roles. Women have less time to devote to work on their own businesses compared to men. And this is due to social disbalances that exist in the division of the domestic workload and the family care. And that's something that maybe for you, and especially now in COVID times, is you can relate more, you know, spending more time teleworking, working with your kids in the school because everything is online, or taking to the elderly considering the COVID times or another situation. Actually, some interesting statistics that's to put this on perspective. Women carry out at least 2.5 times more unpaid household and care work compared to men. And even though women is growing, actually the participation in the economy still is not, is behind in terms of a real compensation compared to the male participation in the domestic and unpaid care work within the households. And finally, the topic of access to capital and finance, which is a big, that you must heard about, a big barrier in order to push entrepreneurship. And actually, that affects even more women. And just to put this on perspective, I would like to talk about what is the financing gap that exists for women-led companies in the region. And I have two big numbers here to put this on perspective. Now, for micro and businesses led by women, the financing gap is 5 billion. And for small and medium enterprises led by women, the gap is $93 billion US. And those numbers are before COVID times. I mean, definitely that impact definitely has been increased during this year. However, the woman remains above the market in terms of consumer and credit worth. Actually, women are expected to control 75% of the consumer spending by 2025, 75%. And actually, this is actually very close to my heart. If I remember when I was growing up and the discussion with my parents about where to invest or where to put the savings, I recall actually the last word has by my mom. She was the one that actually decided. So I relate too much about this number that is here. But why despite this big, great opportunity to work in the women market, why it's not happening? Why the big financing gap? And one of the reasons is the lack of data. And the importance of sex and segregated data is crucial to have quite quality data on this aspect for different reasons. One is to understand who is served, who is unserved, and underserved in the financial systems. Also helps to develop and monitor policies that support women in financial inclusions. And also in the business world is to support business case for serving women as a distinct market, as a distinct niche. So what are a few recommendations for closing the gender gap in respect to data? one is related to policymakers, is to do sex disaggregated national demand side surveys and require or encourage the collection and analysis of reporting of supply side data. And this is very important now, for instance, Trinidad and Tobago, that we're going to approach to have a new census in the near year. And this, to include this kind of information and collect that data will be very important to inform new policies and move more the gender equality agenda. And in the financial service provider side as well, to have sex disaggregated all data to enable better demand side research and supply side analysis related to women's financial inclusion. And this lack of data is not just an issue or concern for Latin America or the developing world. This is actually happening across the world. And that's why the IDB with other multilaterals or institutions around the world found the Women Financial Inclusion Data Partnership in order to standardize the needs for the data, to do awareness and work on our policies, on our projects, and actually to collect this data to have a better way to serve this market. If we zoom a little more in terms of the information for Trinidad and Tobago compared to the region, in terms of SMEs led by women, actually we have good and bad news. If we see the right part, if we compare Trinidad and Tobago to the region in terms of SMEs led by women, actually they're doing here a good job. Women are working in businesses and entrepreneurship. It's actually 30% compared to 13%. So that's a great news. But the bad news is that still they are not getting all the products, all the services that deserve and they're needed for the financial systems. They still are partially constrained or fully constrained in getting the financing compared to the whole Latin America and the Caribbean region. As you can see, the second item of 30% compared to 16% in Latin America. So there's a room of improvement to work and work in this specific market. So with this, having this as a context in terms of the opportunities and the gaps, I want to talk about why gender equality is a win-win scenario. Why it's important to urgent to invest in gender equality and to urge everyone to work on this topic, because definitely will impact on reduce the poverty and inequality and actually will promote more inclusion growth. And there's different factors that actually impulse this agenda that I'm explaining in this slide. The first is talk about innovation. In Latin America, employees with diverse companies are more likely to generate ideas. They're more likely to share best practices and actually share ideas. And the statistics show, for instance, in Latin America, that the diverse companies are 152 more likely to propose new ideas. So compared to ones that are not committed. So the difference and the push is very, very high. In organizational health, and diverse companies tend to excel in motivating their employees. Actually, the work environment and the staff is better. And this is being shown by different satisfaction surveys that companies that has diverse teams are more likely to be satisfied compared to others. And actually the ratio could be from 64 to 31 compared to the ones that are not committed. And in terms of market and capital, what I mean of this, diverse companies are more likely, and that's studies behind this and all the things that I'm saying, that says that the diverse companies also have the livelihood to access new markets and actually have even a larger share of the market on their own segment. So, and also now with this gender lens of investments, also they will be able to attract or get the attraction for the specific funds in order to get equity and to get investment as well in terms of the capital. So that's a win-win in terms of both the money and the money that they request in order to grow. And talent. Diverse companies that excel in this diverse and inclusive culture are welcome and awake the best talent and actually are not only attract, but also do a good job of retaining such talent, and also try to do more collaborative between the different workforce, and this definitely all together, all these 4 factors that I'm talking about has a correlation with financial performance. And this happening, and I will explain in a few slides, in the different segments, how these factors actually play a different role, like in financial institutions that I put here in terms of market share or capital, innovation and talent play a more significant role compared to the other aspect that I was talking. And actually this is, for instance, to have they will help to create a diverse team of management, will have the ability to create products that are actually attending the needs of the clients. And incorporation, similarly, to work on the organizational health in the leadership style, the diverse teams as well will have a big impact on what they are producing in order to meet the needs of the customers, and has a more market penetration than other companies. And infrastructure, again, there are 3 factors that are more key in order to make the financial performance much more, that works in terms of talent, organization health, and innovation. And even though I mentioned at the beginning, for instance, that STEM, woman representation in STEM careers are less compared to men, the good news is this tendency are moving upwards. So that's an opportunity for infrastructure companies to capture that talent, and actually women, people with disability, they have different ways of using the infrastructure, and having their teams reflecting that diversity will actually will have an impact on the infrastructure that is designed, that is planned, and definitely have a more cost-effective and better use on the infrastructure that is building. So with that, I would like to close these 4 factors with some statistics that show how the financial performance are being impacted. And there are 2 numbers that I want you to share with you. Companies with a greater gender diversity in their workforce are 15% more likely to have economic gains than their peers. So that's as a business, there's a plus in terms of profitability. And companies with a higher ethnic, racial, and cultural diversity are 33% more likely to have a better financial performance. So that's a clear case of why investing in gender equality makes sense. That is go beyond of a moral commitment. Is actually a business opportunity that is there to be tackled. And with that context, actually the IDV group, one of our windows, the IDV Invest, last year, do a research of all the cases that is happening in Latin America and the Caribbean in order to see how to enhance and make a case for gender lens investments, and why an opportunity that we have to generate financial returns at the same time advance on gender equality. And pushing in like the rationale why to invest in companies that do certain things is important. And I split this in three types of companies. One that are owned by, led by women, other companies that support gender equality in the workplace, and other companies that develop products and services that possibly impact women. And I will go a little on detail on each one. The first case is investing in companies that are owned or led by women. The region has the higher rates of women entrepreneurs and a smaller gap in participation between men and women entrepreneurs compared to the region, which is a great news for Latin America and the Caribbean. However, there are women struggling to get support. And this is despite the fact of what? Women customers show stronger savings behavior and lower risk. Women likely pay their debts, their loans, and that's proven, and there are numbers behind this. Also, businesses in which women are more represented obtain greater yields on investment and profit margins. As well, financial intermediaries with women-centered programs often achieve financial returns. And I would like to mention one program that the IDV group launched a few years ago called Women Entrepreneurship Banking. Actually, it's a program that tries to tackle the barriers that I explained at the beginning in terms of accessing to financial and non-financial services, providing training, networking, mentoring, besides of the financing. And this through advisory and financing through an investment through financial intermediaries. Now we have like 20 banks participating in this program, around 12 countries, and an investment of more than $800 million of US dollars on investments and more of 5 million of technical assistance. And all the banks that, and financial intermediaries that work on this in these programs have shown advances, impressive advancements with respect to their female customers. So that's kind of a work or a pilot that we worked in order to actually make the case that this is a good investment. Second, and this reiterate what we mentioned a little before, a few slides before, is investing in companies that support gender equality in the workplace as well as a good investment. And why? Companies with more diverse workforce are also better equipped to innovate in product development, tapping into new businesses opportunities, such the woman market that we already mentioned is huge potential. Diversity is now becoming also a key financial metric that investors and analysts assess when they make investment decisions. So this, and we will talk a little more in a few moments about this specific topic. And if a business is good in tackling the gender-related management, it's really more likely that they will be good in dealing with other risk and opportunities. So the likelihood of being a good investment of this type of companies is a great opportunity to invest. And finally, I would like to talk about investing in companies that develop products and services that possibly impact on women. And as I want to reiterate, so women is one of the largest unserved markets in businesses. There is a huge gap that exists in products and services offers that reach women or meet their needs, especially poor women, due to gender biases, product design, market segmentation, and marketing. And despite the fact, 80% of the daily consumer decisions are made by women. So there's kind of a mismatch or an opportunity that we need to take in consideration. And if we close these gender gaps and making ready products and services, this could create the possibility of unlocking $300 billion in US dollars in incremental annual growth of spending by 2025. And I will maybe just to spend a little more on this and just to talk on a case of a company, a startup company in Brazil. There was a rising Brazilian beauty salon in Rio de Janeiro that used products for women who have curly hair. 70% of the population in Brazil has curly hair. However, most of the hair salons in Brazil doesn't have any special product for women that has curly hair. So that means that this Beleza Natural company actually tackled an underserved need. And through an original investment that actually got from a fund, and that it was around 32 million, already they grow the investment more than 142%, and actually is expecting to have almost $700 million of project income in 2020. So that makes more the dynamics of the analysis and also the importance of having data to see what are the needs, what are the needs that women has that are not underserved, and considering that they have the big potential and the impact on making decisions, investment decisions. So with that, what are the new trends? What are the new products that are right now the financial sector is working? and in terms of innovation and trends that is good to talk about it. And hopefully in Trinidad and Tobago and in the Caribbean or elsewhere, also things that can start, start thinking about. One is, and we mentioned slightly before, is woman investors. Actually, woman investor is becoming to be a remarkable proportion of the investment in the landscape. And actually, women investors are more likely to invest on companies that have a gender diversity. Actually, 79% of the women investors said that they were more than likely to invest on this type of companies. So that attracts a big potential for funding for women entrepreneurships. The result-based incentives is that the products that financial institutions and even the IDB group is starting to promote in order to include an incentive in the financing, in order to agree to a specific framework or specific outcomes of targets the corporations are doing. And I can mention an example, for instance, of an energy project in Argentina, on where the management of the sponsor agree to reach certain targets in terms of the composition of the management, one woman on the board, in the workforce. And if they reach that in the time frame that they agree to, they will get a discount or in their interest rate that the loan will have. So they have the incentive tied to advance the gender agenda. And this becoming more trendy, and with the possibility of having access of concessional lending that normally banks like IDB, that has a development role and has access to conventional funding, can actually do a very good blended finance that makes attractive and working with financial institutions here, for instance, in Trinidad and Tobago, and start promoting this kind of products in the different sectors of the economy. Now that, we are trying to see how we can diversify much more in Trinidad and Tobago. And in terms of funds, the reality as well is changing a lot in the financial sector. Before 2018, venture capitals didn't have the gender lens in their investments, but that dynamic has been changing dramatically. And now there are more than 87 funds compared to 50 something before 2018, and they have more than 2 billion on investments focusing on gender. So now the investments, the gender lens are more and more attractive, and is becoming a requirement actually in the credit committees that it was not before. And the gender bonds, and I will detain a little bit on that experience in the next slides. This is something that came up after all the experience on green financing, talking about the climate change and the environments and how to access to the markets and investors trying to invest in that agenda. So taking that experience on the social impact bonds, is the gender bonds has been started to be promoted in the market of Latin America and actually worldwide. There are really very few experiences on gender bonds in the region. And the IDB group has been very lucky to be and have the opportunity to work on the first gender bonds in the private sector side and also in the public sector side that I will explain. But before that, I will show you a little video that explain a little more what are the gender bonds. So this little video is a good introduction about these two business cases that I want to talk. One actually that I was mentioning is the first gender bond that has been issued by a public institution, which is a National Development Bank in Mexico. And actually that deal closed in August 2020, so just now, and it's the first bond, gender bond, that has a full framework. This is an emission that actually was issued in the stock market. So it's go to the capital markets and attract, and it was fully subscribed with. So it was a big success. And hopefully that will be one of other gender bonds that we can do in the region. And that was done with the support of the IDB. And the other is one case that I will have a little video showing. This is actually with some subtitles because it's in Spanish, and it's actually the first gender bond done by a private sector bank in Panama with the support of the IDB Invest, which is our private sector window. The emission is 50 million, so you have that as a reference on US dollars.
El 46% de la población económicamente activa en Panamá no tiene acceso a una cuenta bancaria. Y cuando analizamos ese dato con mayor profundidad, la situación de las mujeres es mucho peor. Un gran número de empresas propiedad de mujeres no tienen acceso al crédito bancario. Y esa realidad entonces nos invitó a comprometernos con la equidad de género y con el empoderamiento económico de la mujer.
Ser mujer siempre es difícil en cualquier sector, yo creo. Pero también el tema del tipo de tecnología que estamos manejando es algo innovador. Es un medio básicamente domado por ingenieros, arquitectos, que por lo general son hombres. Existen muchas barreras al momento de ser algo tan novedoso que los bancos se atrevan a financiarlo, y hemos visto que Banismo tiene toda la voluntad de hacerlo.
Hemos unido esfuerzos con Banismo, la filial de Bancolombia en Panamá, para emitir lo que es el primer bono social con enfoque de género de América Latina. El uso de los recursos que se conseguirán con la emisión irán destinados a financiar a PYME liderada por mujeres. Este bono busca reducir y potencialmente contribuir a 4 de los Objetivos de Desarrollo Sostenible de Naciones Unidas.
El hecho de que un banco sólido diga sí, te aceptamos, sí, la propuesta de valor que estás presentando de tu empresa nos parece que tiene futuro, que es viable, definitivamente marca un antes y un después en mi emprendimiento y como persona inclusive. Y luego entonces también viene el complemento a través de los mentores, a través de los coordinadores del programa, que nos van haciendo esa mezcla perfecta entre lo que son las asesorías prácticas y las asesorías teóricas. En Panamá, el 80% de los contribuyentes son pequeñas y medianas empresas. En esta ocasión tendremos la oportunidad de acompañar proyectos de mujeres en ese segmento y poder así nuevamente contribuir con el empoderamiento económico de estas mujeres y la equidad de género, que son 2 principios fundamentales de los bonos sociales.
Los bonos de género abren una oportunidad para aquellos inversionistas que buscan obtener rentabilidad financiera y avanzar en igualdad de género.
So with these two cases, I just want to highlight a very innovative tool that is being promoted in the region. And actually, we are working in other deals in the region, and we hope that we can bring that to Trinidad and Tobago, and we'll actually push the agenda and also work with SMEs, with financial intermediaries. So zooming a little more about having all the context that I was explaining, and now with the importance of the digital agenda, I thought that it was a good idea to talk about women and fintech, especially during COVID times, and where the challenges of mobility is more important, and how these fintechs can contribute to this gender equality agenda. But before, just to have a definitions about first fintech. Fintech is a new company that uses technology to create new financial services for both consumers, enterprises, and other financial institutions. And if we see the statistics on the region about fintechs, half of the fintechs in the region are working on financial inclusion. So that's a big platform, it's a big opportunity that the woman can take advantage. And you will see that in different angles how a woman and fintech are working. And one of the aspects that I want to talk about is women as founders. And we talked before women as investors, which has a correlation. And if we see the numbers on fintechs in Latin America, we have 30% of the fintechs in Latin America have women in the founding team versus 7% at the global level, which is actually great news for the region. And fintech companies with women in the founding team are more likely to focus on financial inclusion than those fintechs companies that are not founded or that are founded exclusively by men or have more diverse teams. I mean, so that's the really important of working on this topic. However, of that figures, still the numbers of dollars that are going to women-founded fintechs are lower than men. Actually, the statistics in Latin America show that it's around 15% less. However, a report recently launched by Boston Consulting Group says that women, actually, for any dollar that woman fintech raise, it's able to have, she generates 2.5 times more revenue than men. So there's another opportunity, another gap that needs, that are looking for opportunity to actually work on this specific topic. Another aspect is how woman is working on fintech. And then the numbers are not so encouraging. So in the region, only 11% of the fintech companies have 50 or more women working on their teams. And on average, 30% of the staff working on fintechs are women. And you will see on the graphics, I highlight the top 5 countries that has fintechs and that has startups with more than 50%. And you can see the numbers are not so great. So there's a lot of challenges and opportunity or room to increase that figures. And actually to work and have more diverse teams, again, it's not just because of the diversity of opinion, but also that will help to better understanding the need of the financial users. So that's an important aspect that it has to be taken into consideration for the entrepreneurships and for the funding and for the investments. Another aspect of this is women as users of fintech. And this is an aspect that I want to highlight now, especially in COVID times, where women will do whatever it takes, and I think that take the opportunity to reduce the transactional cost, to reduce, they will go through the digital channels in order to reduce time or mobility limitations to household obligations. Remember on the barriers that I mentioned, I mean, women has less time to dedicate to the businesses. So the digital products will open up a big opportunity. And actually in Latin America, it's already seen that the fintechs actually in Latin America, women are taking that advantage vis-a-vis what is happening in the United States of America or the Asia Pacific region, as you can see in the graphic. So fintechs are generating new and more accessible alternatives to overcome the barriers that women face. Again, thinking on what are the women market, what are the niche, and what are the opportunities. So fintech has a huge potential. Of course, it has to be worked with other things related to infrastructure, broadband, and that is an agenda that needs to together private sector and public sector working to push in the specific countries. And just statistics done for the IMF recently that says that gender gaps tend to be slightly lower for fintech-driven financial inclusions than those financial inclusions that goes through traditional institutions. And finally, in terms of female market, and that's as a business opportunity for fintech, also the numbers are very impressive in terms of why this is a big opportunity. 64 of the fintechs that collect sex disaggregated data found that female customers have similar or higher user rate than men. So it's a great customer to have on a fintech. And at the same time, the customer acquisition cost, which is the amount of money that the fintechs invest in order to bring a client to the platform, is similar or lower for women compared to men. And at the same time, the lifetime value, which is let's say is the profit, the profitability that they will get, is similar or higher. So you have equal or less cost compared to men, and also the more chances to have a high return if you attract a woman client to the fintech investment. So, and the graphic on the right that shows exactly what I just mentioned right now. And just going to the last item of my presentation, I just want to show you a couple of tools that I thought could be interesting for the audience. Maybe one more focuses for the corporations and the financial institutions, and the other more for the women entrepreneurships. One is related to the Women Empowerment Principles that was launched by the UN Women and the IDB Group and other entities in 2018. And I will show a very short video before talking about a little more on detail about it. That we just saw in the video is a free, user-friendly, confidential online platform that was created that supports companies in order to adapt a holistic approach in terms of gender equality and in how they can implement the Women Empowerment Principles. And this is focusing on big 4 areas related to leadership, workplace, marketplace, and community. Actually, the IDB group, when we do transactions with the private sector, we provide advisory work on to tackle this specific agenda, not only to identify the gaps, but also to see how this can be put in an implementation action plan. And as you see the numbers, the engagement in the business community has been huge. I mean, we have 1,800 CEOs from around the world that have signed to the CEO support commitment. And we have more today, right now, implementing the tool, almost 1,400 companies in more than 108 countries that has already implemented and completed the tool. Actually, we did an exercise in Trinidad and Tobago last year with a few companies, and I think this is an engagement exercise, and the tool is free. So I really invite you, the companies and the financial institutions, to have a look, and I'm happy to have off-the-line discussions to see how we can support further. And for the, this is an example, for instance, how this tool works. And one of the companies, for instance, Coca-Cola, how to promote gender equality with better parental leave policies or work-life balance. And for instance, Coca-Cola has an international dual career network, and other cases like Berkeley or Deloitte or other companies that also is a good example is that are championing these topics. And the other tool that I want to mention, and I invite you to explore more, and this is more for women entrepreneurs, there is the Goldman Sachs 10,000 Women Program. This is, again, another free tool that is a kind of mini MBA, but with a very pragmatical approach. It's a 10 course. You will see in the slides the different topics in order to, and also they accompany the entrepreneurship through a different aspects, from the leadership to management, resource allocations, and to actually to improve a business case. So this is a very, very hands-on tool. And actually, also Goldman Sachs 10,000 Women, for all the graduates from the program, also they have a network. And remember, I mentioned at the beginning how the network between among women is very important. Actually, this is something that also comes with this program that can take advantage. And with that, I would like just to thank you for listening to me, and I hope I achieved my goal to have a compelling case of how gender equality is a good investment, and I'm here to respond in the time that we have left, some questions and comments that you may have. So, Professor Mohammed, I guess go back to you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Medina Bolivar Rocio. We've all remained gripped, and I have, as your moderator, I've been looking at the questions, and they've been coming in fast and furiously. You clearly have raised a lot of issues for people to think about, always a good sign of a good presentation. So far, I have 21 questions on the Q&A, and some of them I am going to have to do some kind of fielding of these. So for those of you listening, please bear with me if I attempt to do that so that we can get through as many of these as possible. And so I wanted to start with and some of these are very basic, so maybe you can answer these quickly and we move on. Janelle Charles, who has been very active on the question line, has raised the question, how do you get further information about IDB and where to go, and where is it located in Trinidad and Tobago? How do you get in contact? So maybe we get that out of the way.
Maybe I can put on the chat that yes, I mean, we are located in St. Clair, that's in our offices, and you can send an email about idbtrinidad.idb.org, and I'm happy to follow up any questions. Also, our website is idb.org. So you can just Google IDB and you will get it to have more information about it.
One of our, thank you. One of our other active questionnaires is Hazel Brown, and she has asked, does the IDB support protected investments, projects of investments in girls? And because we've been speaking about women, so what is that? Can you respond to that?
Yes, definitely. I mean, we are in general, one of the key areas of our work in general is to work in gender across the board, and definitely we go from early childhood to grab to domestic violence and girls. We have been actually working on technical assistance in the past. So yes, we work with the NGOs. Our program for the IDB, we work with the government for the loans and technical assistance, but also we work with NGO and private sector to move the different agendas. And gender is actually one of our cross-cutting priorities of our work in Trinidad and Tobago and the whole region, actually.
There's another question someone has asked, related in some ways. Where can women get access to programs particularly designed for them to either start a business or advance their career? And I imagine she means in relation to IDB itself.
I mean, one of the tools that I mentioned, and I hope we can share the presentation afterwards, for instance, the Goldman Sachs, there is a free online course for entrepreneurship that will help specifically. For programs, the way the IDB work, we try to work through, to have more reach out, we work through financial intermediaries, which it could be public or private, or through the government programs, that could be a specific ministry. So we have these two options, and we don't do loans or technical assistance to individuals, so we have a different way. But I'm happy, and I invite to check our website and get back to us with specific programs or questions or projects that you may have interested, and I'm happy to answer follow-up.
There are two questions based on data, which I want to raise now. One is related to, let me see if I locate this one. Judy Bridge-Mohan has asked, based on your data, what are some of the areas of investment opportunities for women in Trinidad and Tobago? But there's another related question which you might want to pool as you respond. And this is from Sharon Christopher. Can you disaggregate the data between the Caribbean and Latin America so that we can have a clearer idea of the situation in the Caribbean?
Well, as I mentioned at the beginning, data is a big challenge on the region, not only for Trinidad and Tobago, the Caribbean, but the whole region. And actually, my encouragement with this presentation and having this slide is to encourage policymakers or institutions to work on more sex disaggregated. Unfortunately, I mentioned the data for Trinidad and Tobago. Actually, the World Bank Group has a very good sense, and it was a study in 2008 and keep updating that I invite you to check. However, there's not much information. That's why I'm encouraging to see how we can work. And actually ITV, when we work in specific programs, and actually we working also with Minister of Planning and the CSO, is how we can actually have that data to inform policies. That's the big challenge that we have, unfortunately.
Thank you, Rocio. There's another very interesting question from Sterling Frost, who is, as you know, one of the CEOs of First Citizen. And he says, thank you for your insightful contribution. We have been talking about gender equality for some time. The pandemic and its economic fallout has undermined the strides that we have made in several ways. We are now at a point of inflection and must take some bold steps. I want to say that we need to leapfrog. The time has come for us not to take the same incremental steps, but to be bold. So the question is, based on your global experience, what have other countries or sectors done that you are not seeing us do in the Caribbean? What are some of the best practices from other regions that we can begin to learn from?
Thank you for this question. And I would say one of the best practices in terms of gender equality or moving the agenda is Mexico and Chile. And I think Chile, for instance, Banco de Estado, they have been working on tackling the whole array of barriers, financial and non-financial, because I think that's the key. It's not just only focus on the access to finance, but also what are the barriers surrounding. There is these 5 factors that I talk about training, mentoring, networking, that needs to be accompanied with the products. No, I think in general, I mean, I think it has been a lot of development on microfinance, you know, and even a more understanding the type of customers and the clients, and even have training of the investment officer that reach that market. And then you have the big corporation that also have the banks and has the access. But it's a middle, the so-called middle that is more in the SMEs. And that's the part that has to be accompanied and follow these best practices. So I recommend to look, and I'm happy to guide further in a different offline discussion about the case of Mexico and the case of Chile, that I think are the most advanced in terms of, and I just mentioned, for instance, the gender bond that it has issued actually in Mexico just a few months ago, the gender bond.
In fact, there's a question from Nirmala Jagulala, who asks, what are gender bonds? And you have spoken about, so maybe you need to explain just briefly to her.
Yes, the gender bond is a product that it's a social bond. So it's a bond that basically is an issuance of debt that companies or banks can do in the market, and it's in a way to raise money. And the way to raise money is to go to it has the same regulations that any regular bond, which is a security, is a debt, but the debt that is spread out in the capital markets, which institutional investors or individuals. But the difference of the bonds of gender bonds is that they have accompanied a specific target related to gender, to support SMEs, women SMEs, has certain, all the framework is thinking of moving the gender equality agenda. So that's the distinguish between a regular bond that you go just to the market, and the use of proceeds is to build a plant for instance. This is a different use of proceeds that has this peculiarity.
Thank you, Rocio. There's another question raised by Hazel Brown, which I think is interesting, even if we can't answer it. And it also, I also thought of it in listening to you, reflecting back on the traditional financial system women have used for generations, the susu. I don't know if you have a parallel system in Peru where, or
pyramids. Pyramids. Mm-hmm.
Well, pyramid.
Similar. Well,
Yes.
I don't know. I just.
She was asking about the possibilities of transforming the financial sector to include traditional financial systems, such as the SUSU. But I was aligned that a bit with the system of bonds and to see how, and I may be off because it's not my area, but.
I think more that I see as an opportunity are the fintech. I mean, is these the startups that are focusing financial inclusion and movement that doesn't, I mean, the bond, as you mentioned, is more a financial product that will fund that startup or even the fintech. But I think that digital, to work on the digital agenda or the digital program platforms that will attend a need of a woman has more potential to have more success. And actually in Latin America, that there's the numbers, as I mentioned, the woman entrepreneurship is really high. That's actually give an opportunity for women to work and has access from their house because they don't have time because of their obligation that they have from their household. So if we move that agenda more, and again, we need to analyze the market because it's not enough data. That's an opportunity that can be reached.
So the question of data, gender disaggregated data again is very important. Now, I know we are going past our time, so as long as our tech team are agreeable, we can continue and perhaps they'll signal me. But there are quite a few other questions I thought we can look at, and certainly one that I wouldn't want you to miss. Guillermo Menia says, I think we needed to hear a little bit about your own commitment to gender equality from the position of IDB and the way he phrases this question. Can you talk about your experience as a woman working and succeeding in the financial sector? He says it's a great presentation, but maybe say a bit about your own experience.
No, definitely. I mean, I would say, I mean, and you, Professor Mohammed, give an introduction about my bio, but I mean, I think I came from different cultures. I mean, I'm Peruvian. I'm a Peruvian lawyer, and I can say that I has been experiences different of the challenges of a woman moving in a career. In a law firm, when I was working, you see the different cultures and the biases. And the promotion of different values that changed when I changed to work on the IDB when I moved to the US in 2000. And I can tell you one example, for instance, that shows this. In one of the law firms that I've been working, I mean, they reward the number of hours that you work on a specific day and even weekends. And that was actually well placed, and actually that was rewarded and encouraged. Vis-a-vis the different of work and experience that I've been working on the IDB, where they push the gender equality and the work balance, and how you balance your work and your life, and that's as a value. And your performance are not based on how many hours you stay, for instance, in your office, but actually on the results. So it's performance based on results. So the different cultures and the corporate biases that each institutions and experiences. Actually, that's I can say that by experience that I live those. Another thing is important of having for women, I think, is to take risk and to take advantage of how to move. And I think women in general are not inclined to take a risk compared to men. And I think this is with the questions that I've been seeing and how to be bold and how we can actually move the agenda. I really will encourage it, and also to rely on networks. I mean, women are not very good on relying on the others, and we need to have and to find the safe spaces to actually build, because this is something that I learned. I mean, to have a network, to have a mentor in your workplace, definitely this is a figure that actually helps you to move and advance in your career. I mean, when I entered to IDB, I was a junior professional. I came from an institution for only 2 years, and I'm 20. And I advanced. I advanced in the technical career, and then moved to managerial, and that was with the help of the network, help of a mentoring, and I really encourage to look for coaching, because this is key in order to move in the agenda.
Thank you very much, Rocio. We allowed a few more questions. I'm still negotiating that, because I think people who've asked questions would like to get a response. And you've just spoken about your own experience. So this question follows from Curlin Archie Lewis. Do you believe there are specific competencies that women in leadership must possess to be successful, whether in their own business or working for a company?
I mean, as women, I think we already have the skills. I mean, for instance, the multitasking skills, and actually the way of actually do different things, and how we plan. And the way we I think is not just women, but also just push the diversity on the teams. I think it's two different agendas, and I think my presentation is try to see the business opportunity to work on the women market. But I think in more general, the diversity of teams, it brings a big impact on the financial performance of companies. So I will go a little beyond the gender part as well.
And there's a kind of related question. This is a question that surfaces every time we talk about women in business, women in companies and so on. And Danmati Sonachan has, and it's a long question, or long comment, so I'll summarize it. She thinks that women at times do not support other women because they believe it is still a man's world. Given the concerns you raise about diversity and the change in landscape, do you have any advice for how can women be taught to see beyond this? Maybe your own experience moves us beyond this point of women seeing it only as a man's world.
I mean, as you can see, the numbers shows that women are increasingly growing in the economy, in the market economy. I mean, the numbers are showing there, and even for Trinidad and Tobago, the numbers are even higher than Trinidad for women-led companies. So I think I emphasize again is to look for a mentor and a networking around you. I think this is crucial in order to advance and to get these partnerships to be less competitive. And I think I heard that comment before, even among women, they're very competitive each other and they don't share. But I got a feeling this is changing. And I think this is changing when you enter to discuss the experiences. That's why I invite you to see to enter to organizations among women that can excel more than networking, or like the Goldman Sachs that also has that feature embedded that can take advantage as well.
And our last question to you, perhaps, and I'm trying to find the person that I know that Janelle Charles has asked a lot of questions, and we may be able to respond to these later, because many of them have to do with us helping supporting women and females in investment and in their own companies and so on. So Janelle, just alerting you that we've noted all your questions. Some of the questions have been specific in terms of First Citizens' strategy to assist young women in creating gender equality, and whether this is Ayana Strawn, whether we be given the opportunity to participate in future initiatives to close the gender gap. And I want to show our participants that this is what our Women First and our gender initiative in First Citizens is about. So we will be taking note of these questions, even if we can't answer. And the final one is from Sophia Lopez, and this is your last question. She says, the bigger question is how can we take this information and lobby or to engage government and policymakers to take a greater look at enriching gender equality? How can the IDB now aggressively challenge the status quo to work on bridging the gap to minimize gender equality? And I know that you do a lot of work with the public and private sector through IDB. So I think this is a really good question to end on. So over to you.
No, for sure. And the way we work, and actually the IDB, I mean, the gender equality, I mean, since 2010, we have a gender policy that not only is to work on our corporate side, but also trying to mainstream the gender equality agenda and diversity in all our operations with the public and the private sector. As I mentioned before, gender is one of our key priorities, and all our work here in Trinidad and Tobago with the government through our loans is to push that agenda. And actually, one of the, for instance, in terms of domestic violence and reports and research, we are working, you know, we provide one of the reports, and actually was the first report doing and giving data, actually importance to know what are the dimensions of the domestic violence problem in Trinidad and Tobago. And we move this agenda in the different sectors, like in housing, in the water sector, you name it. So we are very conscious of the gaps and the challenges, and in all our dialogue, this is something that we put resources, not only financing, but non-financing, in order to advise our work. And actually we reshape all our environmental and social safeguards last year, and we approved our new that include actually as an independent standard of gender equality. And actually, in a way, we are forcing in all our products and all our processes is to start very early, because we learn by experience after 10 years of having our gender policy, is that sometimes we reach too late in the design of a project to actually tackle the problems of gender equality. So now we go very early when the project is still on design or it's just an idea, we start making the questions on how we can embed it, the gender aspects of disability, the diversity, working with indigenous group and with the other standards. So we have learned, I mean, in more than 10 years that we've been working on this topic in the IDB group. And I think, as I mentioned in our dialogue, I think this is something that definitely I personally, as a country representative here, I'm very encouraged in my work in all aspects.
Great, thank you. So we do have to wrap up now, but in that last question, in that last response, you responded also to Dervel Bazi, and I do know from working with the IDB as a gender expert in their recent environmental and social policy framework for Latin American Caribbean, that gender is really front and center of the IDB's concerns when it deals with questions of diversity. To end this, and before I thank you and participants, I just want to tell Tamika Tanya Williamson that conferences like these are, First Citizens I know facilitates conferences like these, and certainly the success of this one suggests that we may be able to do many more like this because of the new technology that presents itself to us. We had a very good turnout for this one. I have to apologize to those who felt that their questions weren't fully answered, but we did have quite a lot and I tried to field them. Before I hand back to the host, may I thank Rocio for again so willingly agreeing to come on board with us and for being such a great speaker and also, you know, responding to the questions so beautifully. Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
And now I take my leave and hand back to our host to bring us to a close. Thank you again, Lucy.
Thank you, Professor Mohammed and Ms. Medina Bolivar. Indeed, a well-developed presentation that leads us to consider the multiple factors that influence how we may experience equality And how do we achieve investment at the personal, institutional, and the larger levels? Of course, pointed questions that help us think even more about the topic at hand. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your questions. Thank you for participating in this new form of interaction for Women's First. Of course, we adapt as we go on, and we adapt, and through that adaptation, we proceed with optimism. Thank you for spending your time with us this evening. In spite of the challenges we face, we are grateful to have the capacity to carve out a space to ensure that this much needed discourse still takes place. We understand that challenges persist, but we must engage each other now and persistently. Remember, we have shared a link. You will see it in the chat. And this link is the event feedback survey. The survey will open automatically once we leave this webinar. Now, take a minute to let us know how you feel about our webinar today. And there is that opportunity for you. Each person who completes the survey this afternoon will be eligible for a prize. So special thank you once again to Ms. Rocio Medina Bolivar, to Professor Patricia Mohammed, and to Ms. Karen Darbasi. And to you, our kind and generous audience, thanks again for joining and sharing and staying with us from year to year. Next year, we will be able to look back at these memories and look forward to even more discussion with you. It has been a pleasure taking you through this evening's event. Thank you to all who have helped with this session as well, making it possible, managing in the background. We are very grateful. And from First Citizens Women First, we wish you an enjoyable evening and a pleasant rest of your Sunday. I am Sue-Ann Barrett. This has been Women First 2020, Rebuilding Economy Growth with a Gender Perspective. Stay safe.